And I mean, we like to toot our own horn around here, but not in this case. I remember thinking, like, we are not this important. Like, just go away. Like, what is the fascination with the tribunal? Why is the newspaper at the tribunal, let alone now at my business and then to my home? Like, what is so juicy about this? But welcome back to Muse on the Mic. I'm Riley.
And I'm Emily. Thanks for joining us on another great episode of Muse on the Mic. We're so happy you're here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because that helps us grow. Make sure you like this video, comment down below all the things. We love to get into the chit chat in the comments. And you can find all our social media in the caption below as well. And I think we're also going to link a very specific video that this is in reference to, which is one of our old videos. Riley, tell everyone what we're talking about today on the pod.
We are going back today. So we're going back referencing, I think it was episode 4, which was titled Riley's Revenge, one of my favorites. But we didn't dive in when we first covered this topic. We glazed over it, we rushed through it. And I think there's some points we kind of want to revisit and just expand on a bit.
Absolutely. There is so much more like context, and we did kind of a Coles Notes summary as opposed to
Mhm.
doing like the deep dive minute by minute heart racing moments. And gosh, of that entire era that our first 8 episodes covers, of all of the foolery and the competitors and the coalition trying to take us down, I feel like each and every one of those events was actually like a lifetime's worth of stress and panic. And like that, those moments where time kind of slows and stops, and like that day in itself that we're about to talk about was like the longest day in history
Mhm.
because stuff just kept happening and nothing was going according to how it was supposed to. So I think for any new subscribers, we should give them a bit of a summary. Do you want to give them kind of a rounded out version of what this day entailed?
Okay. So this is going back to our tribunal hearing where we were set, or I was set in front of a panel of people to plead why I should be granted a body rub license. The city was convinced we should not be granted this license. So our lawyer and myself went in to plead our case. And what we didn't really touch on, and I want to dive into with you, Emily, is Emily was advised to stay home. She could not accompany me. She could not be my emotional support. So we mentioned she was at home, literally like pacing around her home, waiting to hear this news. But better, let's jump into why were you not allowed to come with me? Bad girl.
Because I'm just a bad girl. You know what? It was almost like body rub politics. Like it was so weird that those were the instructions, because had you asked us, 2 days prior, like we were already making plans. What time are we going to be up? What are you going to wear?
Mhm,
Like, where are we going to meet? Blah, blah, blah. Let's get coffee first. Like, we fully both planned to be at this hearing.
mhm.
And our lawyer was like, absolutely not. You're going to stay home. You're going to sit tight. You're going to shut your mouth and you're going to be a good girl. And that is very difficult for me. So, of course, I didn't sit down. I literally paced all day.
Yeah.
But some of the premise on why the city was arguing that we should not get the license was not actually the city's opinion. It was because of our haters and the coalition of competitors that came together to try to get us shut down and to stop this entire license transfer. And for those that don't know, body rub parlor licenses in Toronto are grandfathered. So you have to buy one and you have to go through a tribunal hearing to get the ownership switched. And so the haters had put together this ginormous file, trying to get in the screen here, like a foot high file, of all the reasons why we don't deserve the license. And one of the accusations was that we had put false claims on our application, and that included me. And so the fact that my name was not on the application was this big issue. Now, you can look at any body rub parlor owner. There's only one name on every body rub parlor's license ownership, and they have many, backers and silent partners. Some are open partnerships, a couple.
Hmm.
this and that. And for some reason, it was never an issue for them. It was just an issue for us. And of course, yet another angle for our little haters to take to try to stop us. And so, still think could have sat in the audience. I didn't have to sit right beside you, but I could have sat in the audience and been quiet and it would have been fine. They would have, I mean, they brought up my name a lot, right? And they cussed and they this and they that. And he like went on and on about it. But like, if you're in, okay, it's kind of a Mickey Mouse court, but if you're in court, you're in the audience, you can't just leap up and like
Right.
cheer or boo or throw tomatoes at a judge. Like you'd get kicked out. So what would I have done? I don't think I would have been harmful there. But his premise was don't be within 200 yards of this place.
Well, and I think what happened was I think we almost kind of got into a snowball of a lie that we shouldn't have gotten ourselves into because like Emily said, one name goes on the license. I don't know how we came to the decision at the time that it would be mine, but it was. It was not for any like illicit reasons. It was just we'll put it in my name. And I think at the beginning, because that hate that we've spoke about that was directed towards Muse mostly was directed towards Emily in the beginning, that I think they looked at it like Emily was the owner and Riley is the facade. And they're being
Oh,
fraudulent and it's being put in Riley's name, but Emily's really the owner. Whereas it really wasn't that complex. Like it was literally just one of us had to put our name. So I think they really did think this is fraudulent. It's her. She's the silent partner. This isn't right. And tried to catch us in this lie that it's not that we lied, like I said, it's just we picked one. And then how do we reverse out of that at that point?
that's a hot take. I like that. You as a facade. I mean, you're a gorgeous facade. Love it. But I think you're right. And there was so much momentum behind the hate against me
Mm-hmm.
that I'm sure from like the bylaw or like investigator, whoever was like on the opposite side of this case from the city, um, they were shocked when they got all of these files and reports and like information sent to them by like anonymous or like these
Mm-hmm.
mystery sources signed John Doe kind of vibe. Because we know that normally these hearings are 20 minutes. It's less than like ticket court. Like,
Yeah.
do you? Yes, I do. Okay, like it's almost like a marriage ceremony. Like it takes 2 seconds, you stamp it, and you're done. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
really not normally long. And the fact that this ended up what, like a 4.5, 5.5, 6 hour freaking hearing, part of it was this like anti Emily, no, she's really the mastermind behind the evil, blah, blah, blah. And it was so outlandish, but I can only imagine being bylaw guy who's normally like, I have a 20-minute hearing on Tuesday. The
Yeah.
next thing you know, he's like, oh shit,
I'm getting called on the stand.
getting in the fight of our life. And that's another piece, right? Is there was an officer, a bylaw officer, who I believe is now retired. I think long retired,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
actually. Um, but this gentleman took the stand in our defense and to be honest put his entire job on the line for it for us and for what I think he saw as the greater good. Like there was definitively a good side and a bad side of this argument, and
Mm-hmm.
what the coalition was doing was very malicious and very hateful and quite frankly uncalled for. And this was someone who'd been in this kind of work for a long time, had never seen anything like this before, but without even missing a beat was completely willing to take the stand in our defense, um, and had to say his piece in a way that really put him at risk. I'm glazing a little there because I want to keep him like, still on the up and in the good,
Yeah.
and hopefully in a blissful retirement. But he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do any of that, but he had known us for a long time and knew the circumstances and knew some of the facts and understood that this approach and this angle and malicious kind of attack against us was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of who's behind what or who's doing who or what our partnership agreements are and what have you. So he took one for the team, that's for damn sure. And I think we are from a distance forever indebted. But it was yet another like Law and Order dun, dun, dun moment because we call officer so and so to the stand is not something that normally happens in a simple license transfer tribunal hearing. Again,
Mm-hmm.
that's usually 10 minutes and a rubber stamp. And I remember you and lawyer telling me afterwards. And I was like, what? He did what? They called it? Like, I could not believe they're calling one of their own. I mean,
Right.
okay, cops go on the stand in like criminal court, but like, how often do you call in your own to like testify?
Mhm.
And who knew that law enforcement would ever be on our side? Like, it was just a whole, I guarantee you the coalition did not see that one coming or expect it.
No, not at all.
Not at
And
all.
I think the whole purpose of it, and he, was on our side and could attest to the fact that we were being honest. But the whole point was to prove they're not being honest in their application. And if they can't do that, if they're being fraudulent in the application, then why should they be able to hold a body rub parlor license? And will they treat that with the same neglect or lack of respect? And when we did get approved the license, it was with condition. I don't know if you remember. I don't remember if it was a year or two, but it was approved with condition that we have no infractions. And I mean, really, infractions do happen as much as we play on the safe side and do things by the book. It definitely can happen. So we were like hyper paranoid, like we have to keep this license in good standing, or it could just be ripped from us at that point.
Yeah, we were extra nerdy. I think you're correct. I think it was 2 years. And
Mhm.
that in body rub world is a long time. I mean,
Mhm.
there's never an order or pattern or predictability on when bylaw visits, right? They do inspections, just like cops do kind of a setup during like the holidays to see who's drinking. In Toronto, we call it the Ride program. I'm sure it's got different names in different areas of the world, but where they set up like an area where they just pull over drivers and constantly check on events like New Year's and Christmas and stuff where
Yep.
people are out partying a lot, right? Keeps the road safe. We get the same kind of inspection. They do a license check. They do a quick walkthrough. They want to make sure each attendant is licensed, that our license on the wall is up to date. They speak with the manager, make sure they're registered as well. And it's usually because we are well behaved. It's usually a 5 minute in and out kind of situation. Usually event free. But we do get ticketed because once in a blue moon, and it's because our bylaws were written so freaking long ago. They're written in the 80s. Getting an amendment is, I'd say, 99.999% impossible. There are some we've been fighting for since I started in the industry like 24 years ago. And we followed it to the letter for those 2 years. I remember we had to find paper slippers for clients. We had to have a lockbox in every room for the client's belongings. We started giving clients paper receipts, and clients were like, I don't fucking want that. It was all the things. We closed like 2 minutes before 9 o'clock. Like, we made sure we were as nerdy could be, because had we had even one infraction, we would have lost the whole thing, which meant hundreds of thousands of dollars down the drain, all that aggravation, and a 2 year prior as holistic, so
Mhm.
established our business, established our name and a bit of a reputation, haters aside. But like, these two spas and another holistic owner as well, like two body rub spas and a holistic, had really teamed together to do whatever it took at any cost, any expense. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to try and stop this from happening. And I can only imagine still how they felt, because there was people in the audience that were on their side. We may not
Mhm.
have recognized them to know who they were because of the
Mhm.
anonymity in the business, but they could be a familiar online handle. They could be someone that still tweets us every day. We don't know, but I'm sure they had spies in the courtroom, relaying the information. And I'm sure they were pissed when we finally got the license. Like, we prevailed through the whole thing. But the drama didn't start there that day. There
No.
was more, and it was all on you.
Well, but that goes into the nerdiness that you just said. So we were granted this license, okay, mission accomplished. And I don't remember what time it was, but let's say it's late afternoon. I had no plans to be going to the spa that day. And I remember our lawyer saying, like, no, you've got to bring the license immediately. Again, we have to follow these rules. So we're granted the license. It has to be on premises and it has to go now. Um, so I leave East York and head to North York to bring this license. And I'm with my partner at the time. And as I'm walking into the spa, again, the Toronto Sun, who was at the tribunal hearing, which we've talked about, the infamous, hideous picture of me. Now they followed me and my partner to the location, and I didn't realize that they were following us there. But as I was walking in, photographer is like trailing, trying to get a photo, and my partner, who's I guess a bit of a bozo, but whatever, goes to try to like stop him with our car. So this is a problem. Now we have like, potential assault, pending. It was just drama. And once we actually got out of there and got back to my home, which I've always been a very private person with, like close friends and family know where I live and that's it. Now I have the Toronto Sun outside my door. And not that I'm concerned about them. They're, in journalism or they're a photographer, but is a picture of my home going to be in the newspaper? Like, is everyone going to know where I live? It was terrifying.
Hey, welcome back to Just the Tip with Riley. Thanks for joining me again, guys. Today we're talking about lubrication. Spit or lube? Your girl's a spit fan, so I found this a little bit discouraging to do the research and discover, but the facts I'm going to share with you really are pro-lube. STIs can be passed through your saliva, and they do change our pH balance of our bodies.
If this tip isn't enough, subscribe to Patreon for the whole thing.
Oh gosh, I remember it, and yet it's still all a blur. And I can only imagine how blurry and scary that was for you because again, it's those moments where time stops. You hear your heartbeat in your chest, like you feel the clenching, like it's like the world is suddenly closing in and the panic starts. And I do remember that partner, and he was all fired up too. So like tensions were high, adrenaline was high, stakes were even higher. Like every single thing was on the line, not just our livelihoods, our reputations, this license. But I remember you driving too fast just to get there because technically, the second that license was approved, that null and voided our holistic license, immediately meant that the body rep license was active. And the bylaw is that it must be posted on premises. And it was a matter of, are bylaw going to drive there faster than you and lay us with our first ticket?
Right.
Because are they in the pockets of these other parlor owners trying to get us, or out to get us? And knowing them, they would pay any amount of money to make sure that happens. So
Mhm.
within like the first 20 minutes of owning the license, we'd have our first infraction and then
Mhm.
license revoked, right? It
Yeah.
was not just beat the clock, but beat the damn traffic in this city too, which anyone that knows Toronto was a mess then. It's even worse now. You're not moving
Right.
anywhere at that time of day, right? So it was a race against the clock. It was a race against the haters. It was race against bylaw if they were even going to try and pull some shit. Like it was just so much. And somehow the Toronto Sun was like do right behind you. Like the fact that they were close on your tail with that whole set of circumstances reminds me of like the movie Speed. Like it's
Right.
it's crazy. Like or Taken. Like it is high impact, heart racing action movie to get this vital piece of paper to the location.
I remember thinking,
Crazy.
and I mean, we like to toot our own horn around here, but not in this case. I remember thinking, like, we are not this important. Like, just go away. Like, what is the fascination with the tribunal? Why is the newspaper at the tribunal, let alone now at my business and then to my home? Like, what is so juicy about this? But
Really, because if the whole point and the whole end story, the whole conclusion is, and they got their license anyway. That's
mhm,
not a story. That's not a scoop. That's barely even a rumor. Like, what is that?
right.
That should barely be in a newspaper, let alone an entire page. Like, it was just so terrifying. And with how much privacy we need in this industry, literally being chased by haters, with the media exposing our identities, doxing and outing us, like there could not have been riskier circumstances. And it's still like surreal to think our families at the time were in the dark about what we were going
Mhm,
through because we hadn't told them yet. We hadn't yet been outed. It was the next day that you got
right.
outed, right? So we were still blissfully behind that like shield, so we thought. There's like literally people following us with like private investigators and stuff. What if their investigator followed the sun photographer? and they know where you live now. Like it was literally 2 degrees of separation for
Mhm.
our entire lives to be exploded and at risk. We've got all these haters. We've got online hate happening. With online hate means a lot of keyboard warriors, but you also end up with the people that will risk it. If someone has nothing to lose,
Yeah.
they don't care to lose nothing, right? So someone could have harmed us extremely. Like it was very scary. And I remember both of us at that time contemplating moving, contemplating like, do we go into hiding or do we just come out and say our real names? Like which approach are we going to do? And yet, because that day was so exhausting, let's talk about it tomorrow. We've had a long day. This has been crazy, blah, blah, blah. We can have these conversations down the road. Little did we know that the very next day, you're going to be plastered all over the newspaper. And there goes privacy altogether, which puts us at that much more risk with haters literally chasing you in the parking lot. Like it's crazy. It's crazy to think. It was so scary and so risky. I still can't believe it happened. This is a
Me
movie.
too. It really was. And I mean, one point that we talked about as well is that morning, going to get the sun. And I had mentioned in the episode, I immediately came home and like hid in my bedroom. And as much as that may sound like a short period of time, I'm talking like the day. Like I was
Oh, yeah.
contemplating the future of life and how am I going to talk to people about this? Why am I going to say I've lied about it? Because it's, why did I hide it? It was such a tricky time in life. And again, we've both been so supported through our families at the time. And we're glad we're in the place we are now. But it wasn't an easy road to navigate back then. And as quick as we ran through that story, the first episode, and even now, these days felt like years. Like it was huge. It was the most important, terrifying thing that was going on in our world constantly.
Yeah. And I think we didn't even expect what that article would even look like. It's not like we got a heads up. We did get a heads up that they'd be there and
Mhm.
asked for comments. But that was it. We didn't realize, hey, we're doing a full page editorial about you guys. We're
Right.
going to be there documenting every minute and every, taking minutes at the hearing. Like, we didn't know there'd be photos. We didn't know that they'd put the AKA Riley in there, like with your real name. Like, we didn't. And clearly, I think his name is Chris something for the Sun, did not
Mhm.
consider your safety or your privacy whatsoever, did not consider the stigma and risk around sex work in general. Um, and technically he violated that as well at the beck and call of these 3 spas that wanted to shut us down. And
Mhm.
still I struggle with wrapping my head around that moral decision on his end, um, let alone the coalition, because shame on them. But I agree with you what you said earlier about like, who are we? What, we were a dinky little holistic with 3 rooms at that time. 3 rooms, we were a tiny box,
Yeah.
and there was literally no reason to be so afraid of us or and it confirmed that we were on the right path and doing the right thing because people wouldn't be so scared if we weren't good at what we're doing. But
Right.
it was so like we were still so new. I felt like 2 years, like we haven't even proved our point yet. Like, how do you guys even know who we are, what we're about? Like, we're barely making what we thought was our splash because look at
Mhm.
what we innovated afterwards. We splashed afterwards, right?
Right.
We had barely made a dent. We hadn't even invented the mixer yet. Like, it was nothing. It was just that we were what, loud online and been like, we're proud to own a spa. My
Right.
name's Emily. Come to Muse. Like, that's the thing that makes you so insecure that you go chase young women around city like in traffic. It's nuts to me. It's still nuts. And so as those days were going by that felt like years, again, second by second, minute by minute, not knowing what was going to happen, you didn't answer my call. You couldn't answer my call when you were in the hearing, right? But even at the
Mhm.
lunch break, I read no news. And then the day that you hid in bed, you wouldn't even answer my call again.
I
It's like,
didn't.
where is my partner?
I'm sorry. I don't remember.
Of all people, I was like, she'll talk to me. Don't worry about it. She'll talk to me. No, and lady, what's happening? It was crazy, but I was scared for you. I was upset. I knew how upset you were because you wouldn't not answer my call unless you were that upset. Like that's a level. We've both had horrible things in our lives happen since
Yeah.
we're the first person we call, right? So if
Yeah.
you're like, I can't even do it, it was a whole other level of horror and fear and what if and wonder, like what's next. And especially for you, what's your family gonna say? What are they gonna think? And just the general public, like I think after that, if I remember correctly, you had gotten like suddenly people on Facebook and stuff were like, "Hey, didn't we go to high school together? I saw you in the sun." Stupid shit exploded everywhere for the
Well, listen,
world.
I'm just glad the hideous photo of me was in the sun and not a picture of my house. Because I
Even
did
there.
move and I was very thankful when I did move, but had it been in the sun, I would have moved immediately.
Oh gosh, that would have been even more panic because moving sucks, let alone
Mhm.
moving in a panic. Oh, that would have been
Yeah.
some heavy lifting. I can picture that right away because that would have been like you move overnight in that
Mhm.
circumstance. You don't have time to like pick which place you like and pack a little on Sunday and whatever.
Yeah.
That would have been a save yourself moment. And that's scary to think about. It's really scary to think about. The whole circumstance was scary to think about. Like we can laugh now. And
Mhm.
I mean, that's how I get over most things, right? Clearly, I laugh through all the things I say on this pod. In general, it was absolutely petrifying. There was so many like thoughts in my head, like we didn't sign up for this. Like as
Mhm.
much as we were like, let's own a body parlor, it'll be great. We never like, what if people want to murder us? Like that thought just never came to be. And I feel like we knew we were loud. We knew we were proud. We knew that we're like, different than everybody else. But to this minute, I still don't think anything we did was bad. I don't think anything we
Right.
did was evil or wrong or nasty. We're just proud business owners and we like to innovate. I still don't understand why that deserves all of these like chain of events. Why did it end up that a bylaw officer had to risk his job to be on the stand just to make the truth come out and defend good people versus bad people? And at
Mhm.
least the good people prevailed, right? But like, how did it get to this? It's insane. And it's never happened since. We've yet to hear about a tribunal hearing that's taken 6.5 hours plus the media chasing them around. Like,
Right.
it doesn't happen. And dozens of parlors have changed hands since we got ours. It
Mhm.
never happened before. It'll probably never happen again. It's
Probably not.
literally just people out to get us, which is insane. It's insane to me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, and I think with our early episodes, this just being the first one we've touched on, I do think we skimmed past a lot of the deeper dive into these subjects. So we should revisit some because those were like interesting years. They were very tumultuous. There's a lot going on, a lot of drama, high intensity. So we'll keep doing the deep dives back into our first 8 episodes, I'd say.
absolutely. I feel like each of those episodes, there's little chunks that we can
Hmm.
just expand upon and be like, well, guess what else happened that minute?
Hmm.
Because that hour was crazy and this happened. Because there's so much more shit. There's so much.
Hmm.
And we say it often when we talk about these episodes with the drama, but there's been drama even up until today, right?
Hmm.
And we don't talk about the more recent stuff very much. So we'll have to get there eventually. But the throwback to the beginning is still top tier in terms of like intensity and fear and the unknown. Even for a lawyer, it was unknown because
Hmm.
the amount of times he looked at us and said, "Guys, this has never happened before." From a man who's been in the industry for like 40 years, we were like, "What? What do you mean never? Like never? Never."
I
Why? I
never
remember
said
him looking at us being like, "What did you guys do?" It's like he couldn't wrap his head around it. Do anything. We didn't do shit.
we didn't.
Crazy times. I love it. So I think this will give at least some of the peeps a little bit more context and a bit of a bird's eye view into what that whole day was like.
Hmm.
Gosh, if you've ever been to Muse, you can picture the parking lot. Imagine where Sun Photographer and Riley are having this little Mexican standoff. I can only imagine that part. Because again, I couldn't be there.
Nope.
Ugh. I so wish I was there to hold your hand. It sucks. It sucks.
Well, it would have
But
been more fun with you.
right? It would have been so much more fun. We would have found some way to throw some wine into the mix and have a giggle.
For sure.
Well, I think that wraps up this revisit of Riley's Revenge. I
think
can't
so,
wait for the next one where we deep dive. It's going to be good.
for sure.
Well, make sure you like the video, share the video because we're trying to grow the channels. Join the Patreon. You can find all the extra spicy exclusive episodes there. And every Sunday night, you can catch Riley for Riley's Just the Tip. Hey, we'll see you next time on Muse on the Mic. Bye, guys.